speech is entitled, Navigating the Crimes of the Plunder Mastermind. Mastermind of plunder. It comes rarely in the life of a nation that the people, under the travails of developing country status, aided by providence, find in themselves to rise above the morass of political corruption and to build the architecture for a fresh and shining territory where people live free of the forces of darkness. Today, the time has come. At last, we stand at the very heart of the epic pork-barrel corruption in the Congress, especially in the Senate. Why are the proportions of corruption so epic in scale? How did the criminals manage to steal some 10 billion pesos of the people's money in just 10 years? Who is the mastermind? Guided by faith in a just God and in the rule of law, dozens of whistleblowers have testified in writing and provided supporting documents to prove that the very heart of darkness is the leadership of the Senate itself. The thorough NBI investigation has led the Department of Justice to file formal charges of plunder against the first batch of suspects led by no less than the former Senate President, Juan Ponce, at that time, the untouchable. The Ombudsman is conducting preliminary investigation and has assured the public that justice will not be denied. The resolution will be issued by the end of this month. Notably, the Ombudsman has admitted receiving a memorandum of over 200 pages, pinpointing Enrile as the mastermind of plunder. That official memorandum validates the charge I aired in the latest hearing of the Blue Ribbon Committee, where I first made that very same accusation based on the lawyer's thought process of enlightened skepticism. If he smarted against the accusation, Enrile could have requested for an additional hearing where he could be personally present and interpolate Janet Napoles, who appears to be his BFF, his best friend forever. But he chooses to keep away and to keep silent because he's immobilized by fear and humiliation. Instead of presenting evidence to the public of his hypocritical protestations of innocence, Enrile once again chose to steer public attention to what he hopes will be a diversion. The lies and black propaganda heard against me during the 1992 presidential campaign. This man, contrary to logic and common sense, hopes to evade criminal prosecution and public outrage over his plunder by resurrecting campaign dirt against me, which are over 21 years old. Demon Old Man, also known as Tanda, who next month, 2 months away, will be 90 years old. And he tried to portray me in the blackest terms. He pointedly ignored the fact that I am a laureate of the Nobel Prize of Asia, 1988 Magsaysay Award for Government Service. According to the official citation, the award, quote, recognizes her bold and moral leadership in cleaning up a graft-ridden government agency, unquote. Media has noted that I am reportedly, quote, the most awarded Filipino public official, unquote, because I won such awards as TOIN, Towns, and UP's most outstanding law alumnus. And he didn't never reach these levels of professional recognition. Instead, he spent his time on his tablet while the Senate is in session. Please feel free to compare my resume to his, since my biography appears in Wikipedia. This was not only bringing parliamentary debate to the lowest level, it is a violation of every canon of civility and decency in public discourse. Parliamentary rules strictly forbid arguments ad hominem, but my attacker delivered an entire speech by appealing to personal prejudices rather than to reason, and by attacking my character rather than my assertion that he is the mastermind of plunder. In fact, my attacker is guilty of violating the Senate rules, Rule 34, Section 94, quote, no senator under any circumstances, I supply the emphasis, under any circumstances shall use offensive or improper language against another senator or against any public institution, unquote. Under Rule 34, he has committed the offense of unparliamentary acts and language, and they shall charge him with disorderly behavior with the Ethics or the Rules Committee, punishable by suspension for 60 days. And his total lack of credibility. My attacker is the icon of shameless lying. Under President Ferdinand Marcos, he claimed that as Defense Secretary, he was ambushed, thus laying the ground for the imposition of martial law. Under President Corazon Aquino, he retracted and admitted that his ambush was fake and staged. Then, under President Benigno Aquino III, he retracted again. He now claims in his memoirs that the ambush was genuine after all. He eats his own words for breakfast. In the law of evidence, he has absolutely no credibility. Falsus in uno, falsus in omnibus. False in one thing, false in all things. The Supreme Court has ruled, quote, for evidence to be believed, it must not only proceed from the mouth of a credible witness, but must be credible in itself, such as the common experience and observation of mankind can prove as probable under the circumstances, unquote. People v. Loriega, 326 Craft, 675, 2000. And his bungled attempt at revisionist history and his blatant disinformation has been widely condemned by all sectors of society, particularly in social media. The man is an incorrigible liar and criminal, as brought out by the litany of his crimes against the Filipino people. Accordingly, I respectfully urge the Justice Secretary to order an immediate and exhaustive investigation into the following crimes, among others, under the Penal Code committed by Enrile. Number 1, command responsibility for death and disappearance during martial law. In 2012, the Communist Party of the Philippines sent an email to media with the following condemnation of Enrile as delusional. In his notorious memoirs, quote, Enrile was Marcos's hatchet man and the one who signed countless warrants that led to the capture and detention of thousands of farmer leaders, workers, students, activists in the church, and other critics and opponents of martial law. Enrile's hands are forever stained with the blood of close to 4,000 people. 4,000 people died who were salvaged through Marcos's reign of terror. Enrile exposed himself as a liar, unquote. Inquirer Visayas, 10 October 2012. During martial law, Enrile was the almighty Defense Secretary when I was appointed the youngest RTC judge in the Mecca of Judges, Metro Manila, serving in Quezon City. In 1985, when gasoline prices went up, some 50 students from Ateneo and UP joined a street demonstration in Cubao to protest the martial law regime. Most of them were seniors scheduled to take their final exams and to graduate from college. Enrile ordered the military to arrest the students on the basis of martial law presidential decree that defined the crime of illegal assembly as any gathering opposed to the administration and that imposed the death penalty. I was assigned to the case. I suspended trial in all other cases and continuously heard the illegal assembly case morning, afternoon, and evening. The issue was, does martial law automatically cancel the right to bail? My decisive answer was no, and I ordered the release of the students. However, the military defied my release order, and in fact, filed a second charge of inciting to sedition against the students. The accused appealed, and the Supreme Court in effect upheld me. This was the 1990 case of Roca Cervantes et al. Versus Enrile Ramos et al. 192 Scrap 183, 1990. From the very beginning, Enrile has always resented the Supreme Court decision and held it against me for refusing to kowtow to him even during the dark days of martial law when he swaggered around town as if he owned it. The Supreme Court slapped him down, ruling, quote, that the criminal proceedings had become a case of persecution, having been undertaken by state officials in bad faith, unquote. The court pointed a finger at Enrile and criticized emphasized, quote, respondents' bad faith and malicious intent, unquote. The court warned Enrile that he did not have, quote, a license to run roughshod over a citizen's basic constitutional rights, such as due process, or manipulate the law to suit dictatorial tendencies, unquote. This was and remains Enrile's arrogant, tyrannical attitude to young people, persecution, bad faith, malice, and dictatorship. He has never changed. Number 2, mastermind of the biggest plunder case in Philippine history. In June 2013, the Department of Budget and Management released statistics showing that in a 5-year period for 2005 to 2013, Enrile was the biggest recipient of pork barrel, amounting to a total 1.189 billion pesos. According to whistleblowers, Enrile gave the syndicates of dummy NGOs run by Janet Napoles access to his pork barrel in no less than 22 instances. 22 cabezas ginawa niya. In all, Enrile reportedly gave 641.65 million pesos from his pork barrel funds to dummy corporations founded by Napoles. Marina Sunyas, a whistleblower, testified that Napoles personally talked to the senator concerned or the chief of staff. Sunyas also testified that in 2012, her dummy foundation received 5 million pesos in pork barrel funds from Enrile. The Commission on Audit issued a PDAP report that in 2011, Enrile was one of 4 government officials who gave some 206 million in pork barrel funds to the Department of Agriculture, to a questionable NGO from 2009 to 2010. The Inquirer story said, quote, Enrile withheld further comment until he had checked his records, unquote. Until now, Enrile has clung to his right to remain silent, posing a group of netizens to start a movement called Kumibo Ka Naman Enrile, with the acronym KKNE, or pronounced Kine. Enrile has cowered like a mouse. He could very well have delivered a privileged speech proving his innocence. Instead, his speech was directed at me, rehashing black propaganda against me during the 1992 presidential campaign. Yun lang ba ang magagawa niya? You will remember that I led in the counting for the first 5 days, but thereafter was cheated of the presidency. I filed an election protest, but it was dismissed by the Supreme Court on the technicality that I had already been elected as senator. So that issue has never been settled. He is silent on the evidence, but voluble on malice. His speech amounted to verbal violence and a woman lying in her sickbed, while he preached in the Senate, demonstrating his skills as a drama king of corrupt politics. Number 3, king of smuggling empire. In 1995, the Representative Enrile, in native Gonzaga, Cagayan, authored RA number 7922, creating the Cagayan Economic Zone Authority, or CEZA. Section 6, paragraph F, gives to CEZA the right, quote, to operate tourism-related activities, including games, amusements, recreational sports facilities, such as horse racing, dog racing, gambling casinos, golf courses, and others, under priorities and standards set by CEZA, unquote. The free port occupies 441,000 hectares, an area almost 3 times the size of Quezon City. And he claimed that the port would become the hub in Southeast Asia of interactive gaming, his term for gambling on the internet, shipping, and ecotourism. The Port Irene CEO is Enrile's relative, Jose Marie Ponce. According to Enrile himself, his representative in his port is his son-in-law, James Coulter, an American who, according to former U.S. Ambassador Christy Kenny, and I quote, runs an O2 import operation in the port and is suspected of involvement in smuggling, unquote. Released by WikiLeaks on U.S. Embassy Cable 8, Manila 1417, sent by Kenny to the U.S. Department of State on 13 June 1998. Enrile, according to the cable, presided at a Senate hearing and indulged himself by repeatedly and fiercely shouting at representatives of the Joint Foreign Chambers of Commerce because the foreign businessmen had complained about smuggling in Port Irene. On 12 December 2002, President Gloria Arroyo issued Executive Order number 156, imposing a partial ban on the importation of used cars. In the 2000 case of Executive Secretary V. South Wing, in effect, the Supreme Court upheld the validity of the ban. And in the 2013 case of Executive Secretary V. Forerunner, the Supreme Court again upheld the validity of the law. In open defiance of the Supreme Court rulings banning importation of used cars, CESA continued its operations, its importations. In 2012, car traders imported some 5,400 vehicles contained in 18 shipments. In February 2013, a Japanese cargo ship set off for Port Irene with a shipment of Hummers, Porsches, BMWs, Mercedes-Benzes, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, and other used luxury cars. The government refused to issue clearance for registration of the shipment, and CESA was forced to re-export those used cars. Presumably because of all the illegal shenanigans in Port Irene, just last month here in the Senate, Senator Sergio Osmeña, chair of Subcommittee B of the Finance Committee, recommended a cut from the CESA budget of 800 million pesos. On Enrile's appeal, Osmeña agreed to restore this amount of nearly 1 billion pesos subject to certain conditions. That's how much of the taxpayers' money go to finance Enrile's smuggling empire. Bakit tayo magbabayad? Sa pamagitan ating voice para kumita yung smuggler na ito. Number 4, anticipated king of gambling empire. CESA operates online gaming outside the jurisdiction of PAG-4. The Cagayan Ecozone is the only ecozone in the country that is allowed by the Enrile law to host and issue online gambling licenses to offshore companies. Matinik, mag-isa lang siya sa buong Pilipinas na mayroong ganon. Such foreigners are not required to live in our country or to incorporate as a Filipino company. They only need an interactive gaming license and to register as a CESA enterprise. Jesus Dicini, president of the Internet and Society program of the UP College of Law, has already warned that CESA should exercise due diligence in giving out licenses which may be exploited by unscrupulous entities. He said that CESA might unwittingly give these companies the legitimacy to operate legally. Just last month, Inquirer columnist Ramon Tulfo reported that police raided and arrested some 700 persons, including some expatriates, in the Makati and Quezon City offices. Allegedly, the firms were operating under license from First Cagayan License and Resort Corporation in CESA. Source, Inquirer, 22 November 2013 at A-24. Last February 2013, the CESA administrator admitted that he had awarded what he calls a master license to First Cagayan to operate internet gambling. The master license allows First Cagayan to issue 7-year licenses to foreign entities to operate online gambling in this country. So far, it appears that it has awarded licenses to 7 foreign corporations, but it claims that it can issue as many licenses as it wants. Again, the favored corporations pay annual fees of $40,000, admitting that only the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAG-4, has been given the mandate to operate legal gambling in the country. I repeat, only PAG-4, under law, can operate legal gambling in our country. CESA claims that it gives licenses only to foreign-based corporations. Naghanap ng lusot. Lahat kailangan sumunod, maliban lang kay Enrile. In brief, CESA promotes online gambling, or what it calls interactive gambling, which has been described as, quote, a lucrative niche market, unquote. It has partnered with telecommunications companies to offer, quote, high-quality, high-speed internet connectivity, unquote. The CESA administrator has boasted abroad that First Cagayan, quote, offers state-of-the-art internet data center facilities in Cagayan and also in Manila, unquote, and that there is, quote, direct connectivity to the US and Europe. Wow, source, online gambling hub, sprouts north of Philippines by Melvin Kalina, news by 25 February 2013. 5. King of martial law, illegal logging empire. During martial law, the largest logging concession, covering, hold your breath, 95,770 hectares, was awarded to Enrile as owner of San Jose Lumber. His license expired in 2007. His illegal logging operations were reportedly protected by the Lost Command, headed by renegade then PC Colonel Carlos Ledesma, also known as Commander Ponce. The logging concession shared a border with Barangay Sagpot, Las Navas town in northern Samar. In September 1981, the Lost Command allegedly figured in the massacre of 45 people. May I request, please, Camilla, to give room for the students so that they can see me while I go to number 6. Prime number 6. I give the students from the gallery permission to stand up so they can see me. Because your vision is now so obstructed that I have no choice. You have to see me when I say this. Number 6, psychopathic, hypersexualized, social, serial womanizer. On 30 January 1998, the Chicago Tribune reported on Enrile, quote, the senator in his early 70s and rumored to be a multimillionaire was a defense minister under Marcos, but helped to bring down a dictator. His wife, Christina, a socialite, walked out on him this month after charging adultery. The other woman is reported to be Gigi Gonzalez Reyes, chief of staff of his Senate office, and about 30 years his junior, unquote. Christina was reported as saying, quote, in the Chicago Tribune, quote, that she no longer could tolerate his chasing after other women, including domestic helpers, cooks, and assistants. For emphasis, he's chasing after other women, including domestic helpers, cooks, and assistants. Walang pinapatawan ito. Kaya ayaw ko tumagi sa kanya, baka mamaya na-HIV ako. This is eyewitness testimony that Enrile is psychopathic and urgently needs treatment for sex addiction. There's a sex addict in the Senate, if you don't know. In an interview with Enrile on 25 January 2012, the Inquirer said that after Gigi earned her law degree in 1988, she joined the Enrile law firm. At that time, Gigi was married to lawyer Rodolfo Inqui Reyes. Enrile caused Inqui to be appointed to the CESA, located at the northeastern tip of Luzon mainland, about 620 kilometers north of Manila. Sinidyos ng babae, ang laki pero punta niya doon sa malayo. Pinag-iwalay, the Reyes couple eventually separated. At one point in his glittering career as Senate President, Enrile had the audacity to throw a birthday party at a 5-star Makati hotel for his concubine. Nag-birthday party para sa kinita niya, to which he was able to drag President Aquino. Photos of the decadent party were splashed in the front pages of top newspapers. And this libertine pontificates about morality? To win the so-called Catholic vote, he pretended to be a determined enemy of the reproductive health law. Also not because his son, whom he groomed to take over the family's fabulous financial empire, was convincingly defeated at the last Senate elections despite reported campaign expenses of 150.797 million pesos, the highest expense of any senatorial candidate. Gigi, together with Enrile, has been charged with plunder and has fled abroad. In her absence, the Enrile camp issued a statement that only Gigi, not Enrile, should be accused of plunder. That is his version of tough love. Number 7, Enrile and his 2012 SALN, Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth, underdeclared his net worth at only 118 million. Despite all his posturing, Enrile's specialty is only tax law. Akala mo alam ng lahat. Tax law pala ang specialty niya. Hence, all his properties are either abroad, in the name of others, or in the name of corporations. In 1975, during martial law, he built a residence in exclusive Las Marinas village. 2 years later, he built a house in Valle Verde, registered in the name of Jaca Investments Corporation, his family's firm. In 1985, he built a huge beach house in his prime beachfront property in Atipuan, Cebu, Batangas. But in a Psalm 2012, belying his wanton lifestyle, including corrupt minions and a private army on his payroll, he declared a net worth of only 118 million. His legal expertise is obviously tax evasion. Ombudsman resolution this month will decide the truth. Enrile and I are engaged in an epic battle to reveal the truth to the Filipino people. On my side, I have university students, social media netizens, Metro Manila and Visayan communities, and the crowds in the major shopping malls, who instantly gather and urge me to continue the good fight. On his side, he has the corrupt journalists in his payroll, corrupt military officials who constitute his private army, his minions in the Customs Bureau and the Internal Revenue Bureau, both of which he used to head and consider to be his fight drums, as well as his key appointed officials in local government and the diplomatic service who serve as his sycophantic spies. Mag-ingat kayo mga senador, lalo na pag pumunta kayo sa Hong Kong, pag baba niyo ng eprano, sasalubong kayo ng protocol officer and sadyan, saspiyan niya. Dating military officer, ngayon protocol officer na. Alam ko pangalan nun. I hope that this clash of titans in the Senate will lead to an Armageddon in Philippine politics. By the end of December, the Ombudsman will resolve whether to dismiss the plunder case or to file a complaint for plunder with the anti-graft court known as Sandigan Bayan. If the Ombudsman files a case in court, Mr. Enrile will automatically be suspended from the Senate by order of the Sandigan Bayan. During trial, he will likely remain in detention because he would have no constitutional right to bail, particularly if the court finds the evidence of guilt is strong. If convicted, he will be jailed for 30 years, 30, and his ill-gotten wealth, expected to be in the billions, will be forfeited in favor of the state. Because he's over 70 years old, he can plead the mitigating circumstance of age in order to lower the sentence. Also, because of his age, he can apply for executive clemency. But it is not true that his advanced age exempts him from criminal liability. He has to pay for his sins unless he turns state witness and rats on Senator Jinggoy Estrada, Senator Bong Revilla, and his other co-accused in the plunder case. After his poisonous personal attacks against me, Enrile expects that I shall be cowed into silence by usual bluff and bluster. That is not going to happen. Now, Enrile should get real. In Cagayan, it is said, I purposely direct myself to my student audience. In Cagayan, it is said that when Enrile was a baby, his mother dropped him on his head. Nahulog na sanggol. Tumama ang ulo sa sahig, kaya ganyan yung tao niya. Now he's the poster boy of stem cell treatment that has long gone past its expiry date. Lumapas na, kaya bumalik na sa natural. He looks like female llama, surprised in her bath. Ang female llama, miniature na camel, her body is all twisted and she has a very mean and violent temper. Gano'n ang itsura niya. He reminds me of nothing so much as a dead fish before it has time to stiffen. If he has the courage, he should switch places with me. He should be funny, and I'll be the asshole. For the most apt description of this damaged creature, I quote. This is a quotation. For years, I've regarded his very existence as a monument to all the rancid genes and broken chromosomes that corrupt the possibility of the Filipino dream. He was a false creature of himself, caricature of himself, a man with no soul, no inner convictions, with the integrity of a hyena and the style of a poison coat. His charges are 20 years old. The Prince of Darkness, having no means of demolishing innocent, law-abiding, God-fearing people like me, has recycled rumors against me that were aired and which I answered more than 20 years ago when I ran for president. Maybe he's suffering from age-appropriate dementia again. Mr. Dementia tries in his clumsy way to raise suspicions about my mental health. I appear frequently on TV, and I am widely exposed in other media. And yet, despite the repeated innuendos during election campaigns, the Filipinos have elected and re-elected me to the Senate. Most recently, I was elected by the UN General Assembly to be a judge of the International Criminal Court. I will be the first Filipino there. I was elected #1 judge, a tribute to my country, and the result of a demanding schedule of lectures by me and questions from the audience at separate gatherings of UN delegates grouped in geographical order. By comparison, Enrile with his eternal philandering and unexplained wealth desperately needs a shrink as a mental health measure. His mind is sick, 3 times sick, to use the language of Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games Catching Fire. Yan o. Yan, 3 times sick ka. At para lang sigurado, ito. Enrile violated the law when he tried to pressure my husband, then a customs collector, to release a smuggled Toyota car, forfeited for failure to pay correct customs duties and charges. Forfeited na, ha? At that time, the policy of the Bureau of Customs was to forfeit smuggled cars and to use them as official vehicles for authorized senior staff. That was a policy of the Bureau. My husband was only one of the many staff who earned this privilege by exemplary work, evidenced by annual certificates of commendation issued by the Customs Commissioner. Marami sila. Noong panahon na iyon, pag smuggled ang kotse, pino-forfeit, ibig sabihin, tapos ng proceedings. Pinukuha na ng gobyerno at pinamimigay sa mga senior staff para maging official vehicles nila at makapagtipid sila. And yet, Enrile zeroed in on my husband. Hindi nga in-attack yung policy na yun. Ang in-attack niya, yung husband ko solo. Hindi naman isama ko siyang nakatanggap ng Toyota eh. At Toyota pa man din. Enrile kept threatening to oppose my confirmation as a Grader Reform Secretary unless my husband released the smuggled car to the smuggler. Kaya nag-abogado pala para sa smuggler. As a former Customs Commissioner, Enrile wanted to bend the law for his legal clients. In time, my husband and other senior staff returned the smuggled cars to the BOC. I owned and drove a Mercedes when I was a trial judge. Enrile's charge that I registered the smuggled car in my name, Interlock, is inane, the product of his febrile imagination. Nalagdat na kasi palagi eh. Tumigil ka na nga, nagpagkahapon sa mga babae para gumaling ka. My husband already owned and drove a Ford Mustang sports car as a senior in law school. This tale of a Toyota is a non-issue. Bakit kami hahapon ng Toyota? Di Mercedes na ako, asawa ko, estudyante pa lang sa UP College of Law, naka-Toyota Mustang na. In his speech, as is his annoying habit, Enrile praised himself by boasting of his alleged martial arts prowess, which he has never displayed. Magaling daw siya. Eksperto daw siya sa martial arts. Pero hanggang ngayon, hindi natin nakikita yung martial arts niyang pinagmamalaki. He also boasted of his high grade in the bar exam with a non-sequitur that I had a low grade. Abay, gusto pala niyang magpakasikat. Bakit maghahanap pa siya ng taong aapakan niya para sumikat siya? In UP at that time, many of our professors taught us to devote ourselves to the Socratic method and pay no attention to the bar, which they belittled. So I paid no attention, contrary to my father's wishes at that time, was to avail of a rare scholarship in Moscow, which was a no-zone country insofar as Philippine foreign policy was concerned. In the United States, the bar exam is considered clerical. Any dean of admission of a top law school ignores any claim by Filipino applicants of achievement in the bar exams and are surprised when an applicant from the Philippines puts it in his resume. Instead, the criterion of choice is membership in the Law Journal, which is the acid test of academic excellence in America and Europe. Enrile demands that I should answer the charges of his attack dog, former Senator Pinky Lacson. Mr. Defensor has forgotten that the Senate Legal Office this year promptly upheld me in a written opinion. The Senate, as a matter of policy, allows senators to maintain satellite offices in premises owned by the senator. That is official Senate policy. That is found in the legal opinion of the Senate Legal Office after this charge made against me. The legal opinion revealed that the amount I charged, 70,000 pesos, 70,000 pesos monthly for 403 square meters on the 4th floor of the office building. Never raised from the time I first became senator until now, 70,000 bayad ng Senado para sa 400 square meters, and that is an office building. Hindi naman bahay ko yan, hindi naman garahe ko yan, kamukha ginawa ng ibang senador. Office building yan, registered and taxes paid as an office and commercial building. It's one of the lowest in the Senate. The other charge is that I own the multipurpose hall of the Rizal provincial government. Together with a few other senators, I gave a modest amount of pork barrel to help fund its construction undertaken by the Rizal provincial government. This charge is asinine. Lacson, like his mastermind, seems to be approaching dementia too. Biro mo, pag-aari ko raw ang Rizal provincial multipurpose hall. Niregister ko daw sa Tarlac, hindi naman ako taga-Tarlac. Ang isang Toyota, na ako ng registered owner ng isang Mercedes. Anong klaseng isipan itong mga ito? Let me tell you about the real Lacson. As PNP chief, he coveted the post of JLG secretary, which at that time was occupied by Ronaldo Puno. In his overwhelming desire to become Interior Secretary, Lacson gathered an incriminating file of documents showing that Puno ordered all policemen nationwide to take a drug test, but only with a certain specific laboratory, which turned out to be a small, cheap apartment. Lahat ng kapulisan sa buong bansa gusto ng JLG at that time na kumuha ng drug test na babayaran nila. Doon, na hinanap ng media at pinakita sa telebisyon, yun palang laboratory na yun, hindi man lang pala office building yan, apartment, na luma na. The cunning and scheming Lacson gave me the file. I exposed the corrupt scandal and engaged in a bitter word war with Puno, who hired a lawyer for the sole purpose of character assassination against me. During this time of poisonous hostilities, mostly fought in media, Lacson hopped on a plane to Hong Kong in order to avoid any suspicion of complicity in the expose. Binigyan niya ako ng papel para may skandalong boss niya na gusto niyang palitan at nagtago doon sa Hong Kong habang inatake ako ng kanyang boss. What a jerk. He returned after it was all over and Puno had been damaged. His cowardly retreat from this proxy battle is a standard joke in gatherings of his classmates in the Philippine Military Academy. Marami ba akong kwento tungkol kay Lacson, but it's not that time. Why is it really so close to Lacson? When a Manila Regional Trial Court issued a warrant of arrest against Lacson, he jumped bail and became a fugitive from justice. Nagtago yan eh. May warrant of arrest against him. Lahat tayo, pag na-warrant of arrest, kailangan mag-surrender ka sa korte, ikukulong ka. Maliban lang kung makapagpiyansa ka. Pero siya, hindi. Natakot ka agad na nagtago. That is a crime in itself. TV repeatedly showed a footage of Lacson leaving the airport. Paulit-ulit. Umalis daw ng bansa. Si Lacson mapakita doon sa airport. But many believe that Enrile provided safe haven in Cagayan to Lacson. That is why these two men are so close. It can only be called a relationship with feelings. This early, Pinky Lacson's propaganda team is already touting him as a presidential candidate for 2016. His credential is that he has been given an administrative job in disaster relief efforts in the Visayas. Yun ang maging platform niya para maging presidential candidate siya in 2016. Malacanang issued the appointment just to abort the endless stream of his self-serving press releases. Wherever there was a vacancy in customs, immigration, or even in the non-vacant post of anti-crime czar, already held by the Executive Secretary. This latest caper took his campaign and self-projection to the level of the absurd when his own press release reported that a former policeman, police lang, he allegedly delivered a lecture on constitutional law as part of Enile's effort to shift attention from PDAF to DAF. Challenge to public debate. After this speech, I respectfully declined to yield the floor for interpellation. I rose to answer the personal attack against me, and interpellation will be reserved to waste the time of the Senate. I shall also leave immediately after the speech with your indulgence, Mr. President and colleagues in the Senate, because I am ill with chronic fatigue syndrome. In conclusion, as I did in the past, I challenge Enrile to a public televised debate on the plunder charge against him, face to face. Huwag kang mag-upa ng attack dog mo. Ikaw ang humarap sa akin. Tayong dalawa. Doon sa UP, dahil pareho tayong UP graduate. Sumagot ka! A televised debate on the plunder charge against him, including his illegal and immoral use of the Senate President's discretionary fund to distribute nearly 2 million pesos as Christmas bonus last year to each senator, except for 4 senators, whom he considers his political enemies, led by me. It should be held at the UP Malcolm here, in the College of Law, and only students with valid IDs should be allowed to prevent Enrile from renting the partisan crowd. The first time I challenged Enrile to a debate, he declined, and instead called on action to shower me with near illiterate insults, including an oxymoron. If this second time Enrile again evades debate, this will be an admission that he is the mastermind of the plunder of some 10 billion pesos of the taxpayers' money, and that is insulting me on a personal level, not on the level of principles or policies, but on a personal, prohibited level. He's insulting me on a personal level as a diversionary tactic and as a smokescreen for his criminality. No matter how devilish his power, and no matter how fabulous his ill-gotten wealth, I refuse to be coerced by Enrile. Justice should be done though the heavens fall. I am fortified by my faith. According to the poet, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Thank you.